It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you so much for convening such a special event from participants around the world, helping to make a better future for our cities and our entrepreneurial ecosystems in the mobility space. It's a real pleasure to be here. As mentioned, my name is Dr. Noah Raford. I'm the Futurist-in-Chief and the Chief of Global Affairs for an organization which is somewhat special, the Dubai Future Foundation. We're kind of a mix between the Prime Minister's office or the Mayor's office, DARPA, and Disney, or Technology Incubator. So our job is to try to help people imagine what new, better futures might be like, combining emerging technologies and new business models and new ways of doing things, and how that might then intersect with existing regulations and policies and visions to try to create sustainable mobility systems going forward. You may have heard Dubai is often referred to as a city of the future. I think that is a moniker which is quite true. As a city and the country of the UAE itself, it has experienced extraordinary growth over the last 40 years. But in Dubai in particular, the most of the growth has occurred in the last 20 years. And this has really been an exponential increase in infrastructure development and institutionalization of systems and services, and has led to cement Dubai's position as one of the most modern cities, not just in the region, but in the world. But the infrastructure and skills which have helped us develop over the last 20 years into this position of a global integrator of goods and services and ideas and capital are exactly the kind of things which we need when we look forward to the challenges of the next 20 years as well. So that's our job in the Dubai Future Foundation, to try to help explore what does the next 20 years look like. Because I think we can all agree that the pace of change is not slowing down. In fact, it's accelerating and getting more complex. The amount of challenges are only increasing, and their interaction is getting more intense. So as we look forward to the kind of infrastructure investment scale projects that are required for fast-moving cities, or for retrofitting our old cities to be fit for purpose for the new technologies and business models of tomorrow, we really have to have a long-term view and start to have a point of view for how we address these rapid changes. The foundation itself, as I mentioned, we sit in a very privileged position. We're a wholly government-owned foundation, so we're not a government agency. But as you can see from this slide, we work to integrate via our board all of the major Dubai government departments and entities, as well as the major state-owned enterprises like Emirates Airlines, and many of the federal initiatives like the Ministry, the Prime Minister's Office, the Ministry of Education, the police, etc. So each of these agencies and entities has a very fantastic strategy team, and in some cases, innovation or foresight team internally, helping them diagnose what the future of their sector looks like. But our job is to integrate all of these different teams and all of these different opportunities to try to have a holistic view on the future. This is a really exciting opportunity because it gives us the ability to interface with international partners as a sort of single port of call for people who are interested in exploring prototypes or proof of concepts, or even just ideas or visions or strategies in their sector, in their business. The foundation itself, we do this across a range of activities. We have around 130 full-time employees. This is not that important, but the key point for partners here is that we are this test bed for emerging technologies, particularly what we like to call pre-legal technology. These are technologies which aren't explicitly illegal, but they're just not regulated yet. And so it's therefore important to have a regulatory partner who can keep pace with your vision and enable and authorize, if not actually accelerate, your mobility goals. This all started for us about 5 years ago, as I'm going to walk you through several of the projects that we have had the privilege to work on with our partners in Dubai government, in the private sector, and with various startups. It also help paint a picture of what Dubai's view on the future of mobility is. It's not just self-driving vehicles, it's a holistic solution from small-scale goods and autonomous drone delivery, all the way up to some quite big, exciting ideas, which I'll share with you. So as I mentioned, it started about 5 years ago with a very small solution to a very small problem. How do we take advantage of consumer drone technology to improve people's lives? And we did this through something called a Drones for Good award, which was the first challenge of its kind, an international competition where we offered $1 million for companies, students, or anyone around the world to submit prototypes or ideas for how they could use drones to deliver medicine, to provide critical emergency services. And what's interesting about this is we didn't have any rules or regulations for drone flight at the time. Of course, it was being used in security contexts, but for civilian or commercial uses, there was no infrastructure for it. So by bringing together over 5,000 different companies from 60 different countries, we were able to not only get a sense for who was active in the industry, but help our regulators and government understand what was the kind of regulation that needed to be written in order to facilitate this kind of innovation. You can see this as a way of kind of developing regulation through prototyping with our partners. And this was quite successful, thankfully, and then led to perhaps the main topic of this panel, which is Dubai's self-driving vehicle strategy. Now, Dubai is a very car-intensive place, and when we started to explore the future of autonomous transport, self-driving vehicles, with the Director General of the Road Transportation Authority, let's just say that it required a certain degree of convincing that this was something that could actually happen. And so by bringing together different partners at the time, everyone from Waymo, when I was back at Google X, to a variety of other vendors, we started to explore what this might mean for Dubai's urban planning and investment infrastructure. And out of that learning journey, we developed with the Road Transportation Authority the autonomous transport strategy. And that, I think, is unique in the world because it commits 25% of every single trip to be autonomous by the year 2030. So that's 10 years from now. It's quite an ambitious strategy. And the Road Transportation Authority, who is the actual government department responsible for implementing these strategies and for setting the rules and facilitating the investment infrastructure for this, has taken this forward in a very exciting way, which I'll share with you in a moment. But it didn't end there. The RTA in particular was quite keen on how do we explore aerial urban mobility. Dubai is a long, spread out city. It has relatively stable, albeit warm temperatures most of the year. And so in some respects, it's the perfect test bed for starting to explore what flying taxi solutions might be like. So again, in the spirit of working with partners to prototype our way into an understanding of the best regulations and investment infrastructure, the Road Transportation Authority developed a partnership originally with Ehang, a Chinese drone company that turned out to be quite a useful way of kickstarting the process, and then working with ourselves through one of our accelerator programs, developed an urban air mobility policy framework with Uber Elevate, and then has been working with a variety of different partners to explore actual implementations of such a service and hopes to pilot that quite soon. Also, next generation kinds of mobility beyond just single family or small type of car solutions is key to our long-term mobility vision. You may have heard the news early on, this is probably about 3 years ago now, where we brought a Hyperloop One, which was later rebranded as Virgin Hyperloop One, to Dubai into the UAE through our accelerator program, connected them up with the Road Transportation Authority, and then helped them develop not just a feasibility study and a market study, but a full-scale engineering study to try to understand if Hyperloop One was an appropriate technology, or indeed any Hyperloop technology. And that has then spread throughout the region. They're active in Saudi and India now. And so Dubai has helped to provide this kind of kickstart or the springboard for these next generation pre-legal technologies of mobility to actually find the market fit. You know, we're getting from the very small drones to self-driving vehicles and a network of systems there, all the way up to the biggest. You know, Dubai itself was a major hub for integrating passenger transport and cargo transport via Emirates and the UAE as a whole. And this sector itself, even before COVID, was subject to disruption. I'm sure you've seen Elon Musk in Spaceship One, as well as Jeff Bezos' work. Whilst these kinds of low Earth orbit passenger transport technologies might be 20 years away in the future, the reality is when you're talking about infrastructure and policy investments, that is the timescale you actually have to consider. So we did a variety of studies with the Airports Authority here to try to understand how low Earth orbit hops between Shanghai and London or Dubai and Brazil and Sao Paulo in 3 or 4 hours might totally transform the mobility landscape at scale. Now, I mentioned we do this in the foundation with our partners. The key partner that you might be most interested in is the Roads and Transportation Authority. We're really the champions of this self-driving and mobility system in Dubai. In 2019, they launched something called the Dubai World Challenge for Self-Driving Transport, which explored a variety of different use cases. First and last mile connection, autonomous transportation around cargo and delivery services, the infrastructure necessary to support these, as well as marine innovation as well. And in 2019, we had a variety of quite exciting winners, everything from Navia to Gafsan to Sensible 4 in the big company space, in the startup space, as well as in the academic partner space as well. And RTA is hosting the Self-Driving Congress again, October 2021. And the challenge will run again, focusing on the next round, it's been now almost 2 years later, of innovation in these key spaces, from durable transport systems to energy efficient to the best customer experience, the best technological infrastructure. Now, the point I'm trying to get across here is that Dubai has really distinguished itself as a test bed for these kinds of emerging technologies, particularly if, as is often the case with transport, you need to interface with regulated sectors and with a regulatory body. We've tried to do everything we can to facilitate and streamline that process, from actual proof of concepts and tests to developing strategies with industry partners, to actually creating a constitution and cabinet level exemption process through something we call the regulations lab, which lets us write short-term or temporary laws to test out things which would enable things like insurance and dispute regulation to be facilitated in a more easy fashion. So it's a very short whirlwind tour. What I'm trying to communicate here is that there are very few places in the world where we have such a progressive, full spectrum regulatory support for innovation. And it's not just because this is the right thing to do or this is cool. It's because we have to, for existential reasons, prototype and test these solutions out, not just in Dubai, but for the world. As we're facing a climate crisis, as we're facing resource constraints, not least of which the economic crisis that COVID is likely to continue to cause, we have to use our resources smarter, we have to collaborate more, and we have to do so wherever we can actually do it fastest and best. So thank you for having us here. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share a little bit of what our point of view on a holistic future mobility system for fast-growing cities might look like, and also for the invitation to invite you to come to Dubai and test your solution out, either with us in the Foundation, the Roads Transportation Authority, or any of our major partners. Thank you. Speak to you very soon, I hope.